Welcome back to the second video of the modeling in Unreal Engine 5 series that I am doing. So as you can see, the difference from the last video is I've got rid of all except for the pyramid that we made using the cone tool in the last video. If you have not watched that video, I suggest you go back to video 1, which runs us through basic shapes, which is basically all of these basic shapes. And we are now moving on to individual videos for the advanced tools because, well, it might not be that many videos, but for this one, we are going to just make them quick and simple and cover maybe individual ones. So, the first tool in the more advanced create tools that we're going to look at is the Cube Grid tool. Create blockout meshes using repositionable grid. So, if we jump into this, we are greeted with this kind of messy setup where we have an Actions tab, Asset Actions, Grid, Reinitialization, Options, Block, Shortcut, blah blah blah. All very complicated sounding. But basically, what this is a tool that allows you to use a grid, snappable grid, to draw blocks and kind of do very basic modeling to get very quick layout ideas. First things first, if you hold Control and middle mouse click, you are able to bring in this grid based upon what you click on. So it might be the terrain or a single position on the terrain. I think that was actually interacting with the grass, so I wasn't getting the right. There is a bit of an offset, I think, which maybe I'm getting pushing something wrong. You can see that we have this little highlight option, which essentially is where we would start to produce our grid. You can left click once to get a single cube, 100 by 100 by 100, or you can drag to have multiple cubes joined together to make a bigger block, basically. So if I was to start with this cube, it kind of feels like nothing happens, and that is because we have to do an action after we place this kind of tells the tool where you're about to create something, and then you use an action to create it. So I'm going to actually make a slightly bigger block, 400 by 500, and I'm just going to look at these actions. If we were to press the pull option, you can see it basically pulls from the surface, and if you keep pushing that, it will keep doing that. The push option is the opposite. It will push from that position, obviously. You then have the options to slide back, slide forward. These are just moving kind of actions. Accept and start new, I believe, does exactly that. We now have this object has been created, and if we were to cancel now, it doesn't change this because it was made in that previous action. I'm going to delete and come back in and start a new one. So basically just drawing my new grid. I'm going to pull some things, and we have this block. Within this, if I was to, then attach myself to there and do a pull, we're going to go out from there. Perhaps I could then go from there and we'll do a pull, and from there we'll do a pull. So you can start to see we can start to create very basic shapes and designs. Maybe this is great for a level if your game is quite simple. And then these other actions can help you navigate around that. Quicker than that though, we have the shortcut info tab down here, which basically allows us to do certain actions without even having to click these buttons every time, which I would recommend so that you don't have to keep coming back here. So basically, in order to do the push-pull action, that's E and Q. So if I pick that one and I press E, we can push, and Q to pull. And it seems to now work as a deletion kind of method per block. So once you now have this, you can quickly make interesting edits with just the E and the Q buttons. And then you can accept it and you have yourself a block. That's basically that. If I then come into the options, this is basically related to our grid. If I was to press this and reset to 0, it would be set to the 0 position of the complete level, the environment. Grid frame orientation, if I was to bring it to say here and then change this gives us a different angle for our grid, depending on how you might need that. That is kind of up to you, and you can change that on the fly as well. Not that I would do that very often. I find it hard to know. Oh, did you hear that? Yeah, so the other options is grid power, which is basically the resolution of the grid. The smaller it is, well, kind of the resolution, but you know what I mean. We kind of get the option here to, push or pull, and it is basically resolution in a way. So if we read the description for grid power, it might make more sense. Determines cube grid scale, can also be adjusted with hotkeys. This changes current block size to match the current block size and grid power differently depending on the power of 2 setting. We then have blocks per step, and I'm going to delete that one so it's a bit clearer. Let's just say I choose 1 cube and the size is default and the block is 1, so we're all at default, and we press E to extrude. If we then change that to 2 and press E to extrude, we get 2 steps basically. If we was to change that to 5, press E, we get 5 steps. So it's another way of extruding in larger chunks basically. So that is basically the cube grid tool, which can be used to make very primitive shapes, but it might be very handy, it might not. You can see as I'm doing this, now that I've kind of got a rough grasp, not the best of grasps, that you can kind of do some very quick layout stuff. It's then worth checking some of the other options. Of course, there's such things as, if I remember rightly, corner selection mode or something like this. If I go to, so corner mode, okay. There is okay, yeah, right here, toggle Z for corner mode. So if I was to press Z and select this corner, every time then I press the extrude or not extrude, push or pull buttons, it's only based on that corner. So, with that, you can select multiple corners and create these kind of ramps. And there you go. That's corner mode. I think that's really the most important things you need to know. I would basically go and play with the other options because they're not really that important compared to the other ones. I would really only use this tool for very basic stuff. It's nothing special in terms of like detail, but for very low poly games or basic shapes, this one will work perfectly for those. Please also remember that if you want to talk with me directly, you can jump into the Tecastus public server, which will be linked in the description. And also, if you could please jump over and follow the Tecastus Studios YouTube channel, that would also be greatly appreciated so that you can keep up to date with the other project that I'll be going deep into pretty soon, and I'm sure you'll love it.